Bye! My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our DUK Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back once again to another episode of DUK Dogs, everybody. I am Josh Miller. And before we get going, let's be sure to thank our wonderful partners that make this show possible. So thank you first and foremost to Eukanuba. Eukanuba is the presenting sponsor of this show. www.eukanuba.com. I would highly suggest you looking at the Premium Performance Blends. Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food that I have my dogs on, my dogs at the kennel that are in for training. And it has just been a fantastic food across the board, from energy to coat to recovery time. I mean, just everything that we'd look for in nutrition. So www.eukanuba.com. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs for your gun dog. Great people, great customer service, great product selection. www.gundogsupply.com. Also, thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent Cartridge is our shotgun shell of choice as we head into the season, and I would highly suggest stocking up on that early, just in case. There's nothing worse than going on a trip not having shells, then you have to stop at every place along the way to find shotgun shells. So stock up early, www.kentcartridge.com. I love the bismuth. If you were to look at what the recommendation I'd give, I would definitely recommend that Kent bismuth. Thank you to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test rated kennel in both the intermediate and the large, and now the smaller medium size. So 5-star crash test ratings across the board. They're just a great product. It will keep your dog as safe as possible as you guys travel. www.luckyduck.com. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option for outdoor clothing, both as you hit the field here this fall, but also during training season. Check out the everyday wear. Again, will keep you in the field more comfortable for longer. www.sitkagear.com. Also, thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your premium option to train your own dog at home. Video-based library, a great community. The strike teams, which if you don't know what the strike teams are, they are opportunities for you to train with other members that are in your area. So, different places, new people, networking, honoring other dogs, new tools. I mean, all these things that can be oftentimes very difficult for you to have at home to train with by yourself. So www.retrieverroadmap.com. Last but not least, thank you to Gun Dog Grind. Gun Dog Grind is my absolute favorite cup of coffee that I possibly could have. And as a thank you to our audience base here, if you go to Gun Dog Grind and you use the code DUK Dogs, DUKDOGS, you'll get 15% off your purchase for Gun Dog Grind. So go check it out. It is an absolutely fantastic cup of coffee and has a number of different flavors. I love the toasted pecan, but I actually just had the sugar cookie flavor for the first time this morning. I actually really liked that too. I didn't know if I would. So www.gundoggrind.com. All right, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic week. I'm actually in the studio alone today. One of the biggest reasons is that we have just been go at the kennel. This is probably the busiest month of the year for us as far as training goes. Naturally, being up here in the north, we have early goose season starting here. We have dove season starting up here. Our early duck season is actually just a few weeks away, right around the corner, and it just is that time of year everybody's wanting their dogs back home. Our Texas clients, or our southern clients in particular, but we just have a very heavy Texas client following, they all want their dogs back by the end of this month so that they're ready for dove opener on September 1st. And, so we were kind of, scrambling for that, and, not really scrambling, but we're just getting everybody dialed in and getting everybody ready for that, because here we are on August 15th. Is that right? 15th. So, it's go. And then for us at the kennel, if you are in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area, you probably know about Game Fair. Game Fair is a big outdoor show. Basically, if you have a dog and you're a hunter, which I'm going to guess you're probably one of the two or both if you're listening to the show, it is a cool show. You can bring your dog. Personally, I wouldn't, but you can. I'll talk about that here in a second. But it's a great show. You can bring your dog. It's outdoors. There's a lot of great seminars. About every company you could think of is there. You can purchase at the show, which isn't always the case, and so you can walk away with gear or things you're looking to pick up here before season starts. It is a cool show, but to be honest with you, it is a really, really tough one for us because it is 2 3-day weekends in a row. So it's last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And like I just told you, August is our busiest month of the year. So then what we do is we kill 2 3-day weekends. Well, we got to set up the day before the first Thursday, and we have to tear down the Monday after. So it's 8 days of our busiest month of the year. And the one thing that I'll really say, which is a big shout out and kudos to the guys, to Eric and Dave and Zach, is that you talk about just from a business standpoint. So we had Shields University here the weekend before. That was just a me thing. But we had that. Then we have 3-day weekend at Game Fair, then 3-day weekend at Game Fair, and then next weekend we have Wisconsin Waterfowl Hunters Expo. And so when you look at that, we're basically working 30 straight days. And now for the guys, I guess you might look at it and say, well, as a business owner, wouldn't you expect that? For sure. But these guys are part of the team, right? Like most of the time, you look at your normal job. Like your weekends are free. Your weekends are with your family. You get to have that decompress time. We just don't get that this month. And it is like this every year. And here's what I'll say is that this team has just been so great about leaning on each other, having great attitudes, not getting drugged down. And that is a talent because all it takes is one person to be the infection. And all of a sudden it just spreads. Everybody gets drugged down. Everybody has a bad attitude. Everybody's kicking rocks. It can spread like wildfire. And so I'm so proud of this team and so proud of what they're doing, how they're doing it. And I'll tell you what, for us, it's even more important that they stay on top of it, that we all stay on top of it with the attitude because the dogs pick up on it. I mean, I'm sure you at home, you've had those situations where you want to decompress from work and you're just frustrated, you're pissed off, you're just like, I'm just gonna go train the dog. I would bet dollars to donuts that your dog acts different in those moments because they're picking up on it, right? So for us, we can't lose time regressing with training. We have to have that good attitude. We can't let the dogs, go off just because we have a bad attitude. So just across the board, I could not be prouder of these guys. And okay, so here's another question that comes up about Game Fair and the shows in general is, why? Why do you do the shows? And I'll tell you, it does get more and more difficult to justify all the time. And, for us as a business, we're not looking to really go pick up business. We love the demand that we have at the kennel, both puppies and, and the training side of things. So it's not like we're going there saying, hey, we need to pick up X amount of clients. For me, I guess it's more of a branding, thing, if you will, you're just being present, being able to be there. I love seeing the past clients. That's my favorite part of these shows is both 2 and 4-legged. It's funny. Sometimes I recognize the 4-legged client before I even do the 2-legged. But I'll tell you the biggest thing for me is that I'm a big believer in that you don't forget where you came from. And these shows, they really allowed me, Sport Dog in general. Sport Dog gave me a shot as
an 18-year-old kid who was running around some of these, these tests and trials with one dog, having some success. And the guy that met me with Sport Dog was just like, man, I just don't see kids your age doing this. Like, is this something your dad does? No. Oh, that's kind of cool. Like, we want to help you out. And then through that network, that allowed me to speak at some of these shows. Well, speaking at the shows allowed me to showcase myself and showcase my training and showcase, you'll be able to, give my opinion and give my methodology. And so I'm just a big believer that you don't forget where you came from. And that's why I struggle so much with it. Because I promise you, it'd be way easier to not do the shows, not have the travel, not have the extra costs, not have, potentially, wearing down the team. But I'm just very, very proud of my team. So thank you. Shout out to the guys. Probably easier for me to say that when they're not here, because they'd be way too humble about it. But they've done an absolutely fantastic job at the kennel with everything we have going on this month. So it's busy. Let's talk about dove season for a second, because dove season is right around the corner. And I know we've had a number of people, especially our clients down south, a lot of questions and a lot of interest going into the season. And so dove season is so interesting to me, because this isn't going to be the bulk of the show, by the way. I want to talk, like, the big factor here. I want to talk about understanding your dog, because this has come up a lot. I want to dig into this, and then I also want to get to some dog bowl questions. But I want to hit this because I talked a lot about dove season with people at specifically at Game Fair. And I think dove season, I have no statistical background to actually stand on this, but it seems to me, at least in our network, like dove season is getting more popular. Now, keep in mind, like, if you're listening to this from Texas, you're probably like, what are you talking about, right? Because, like, dove season has always been, big for, you guys. I think it's great. But it hasn't been really, I mean, like, growing up here in Wisconsin, like, you never heard about people dove hunting. You never heard about dove season or dove opener being a thing. And I feel like more and more so is getting to be popular, especially with those of us up here in the north, whether that's you travel or whether that's you take advantage of what the north has to offer in that. Personally, I always travel down to Kansas. I have a great trip with some great clients of mine that we've made an annual thing, and I absolutely love that. But dove season, it does have some hurdles. I think everyone looks at it and goes, what a great opportunity. Early season, ease into the season. It's really laid back. You sit there with a bucket, have a Gatorade sitting at your side. You'll be able to razz my buddy that's 80 yards away, down the line, on a shot miss. It definitely is. It is a very, very different vibe than the waterfowl season. Waterfowl season naturally, at least for me, it's much more intense. When you're talking about the scouting, the setup, the decoy placement, the calling, the blind hide, right? Like, you just go down the line. Well, naturally, I have a higher expectation from my dogs in those situations, because I think of everything that more naturally goes into it. So I think dove season oftentimes is looked at as like this easy thing. Well, I'll tell you what, dove season is not easy on your dog by any stretch of the imagination. You think about, first off, we couldn't probably be putting them in any worse scenting conditions. It's hot, it's dry. A lot of times they're hunting in thicker cover, whether that's Milo. I'm just trying to think of what we hunt with hunting a lot of times down in Kansas. Like, we've got Milo, we've got sunflower fields, we've got it's big grass patches. Actually, there's one. It's not called. It's a weed that, like, it gets to be really sick and almost looks like marijuana plants is what it looks like. They had a name for it down there. Somebody's probably laughing, going, "Yeah, you're hunting a pot field." I don't know exactly what it's called, but anyways, it's a lot of times what we're hunting down there is we're hunting. Maybe there's like a few passes of cut crop, but then standing all around, which is great for a hide because we can sit kind of in that first row of whatever and be able to shoot. Well, the doves doesn't mean that they're just landing in the wide open, right? Oftentimes they're in. So you think about heavy cover, very, very poor scenting conditions, and then the fact of the matter of you're hunting. This is a tiny bird that gives off very little scent. especially in comparison to a mallard, a rooster, a honker. I mean, everything else that you're going to pick up, I mean, very obvious, to a dog. Not a dove. I mean, I've watched a lot of very seasoned and veteran dogs run right over top of a dove. Again, they can't see it because it's, laying there the same color, the same everything in thicker cover. And then the scenting is so poor. And then you add on the next ripple of is oftentimes hot. So now all of a sudden the dog is panting. The dog has, there's so many things. And so for me, I look at that. I think the one thing I just want to broadcast out there is give your dog some leniency in that first, because that's the other side of it. This is the first time for them back in the field too. They got to knock the rust off. They're going to have some things that they need to redial in. Hunting is not training. We talk about that all the time, right? But I could say what I love about dove season is it is as training-like as possible. So if I have a young dog, I'm going to stop and I'm going to handle. I'm going to put himself, put him to a spot, right? There, I know that bird is there. I want to handle him. With doves, I have very little to no problem unloading the gun, putting the gun down, and making this like a live training session. If birds are coming in and out or they're passing or whatever, I don't know. And maybe I'm spoiled with where I hunt, over in Kansas to where there's a lot of opportunity. But, I mean, I just don't get that worked up about it. I mean, if I don't come back with my 15, which is the limit, 15 doves, I'm okay, right? But there's something about, I think it has probably more to do with that you're oftentimes in a group setting. But I mean, my goodness, like for a waterfowl hunter, right? Could you imagine that first group of the season, boom, 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 and you got a situation like, hey, I can stand out here in the decoys, handle my dog a little bit. We're gonna just take 15 minutes to make this training session. If there's other birds that are wanting to do it and you're flaring them out of there, your buddies are probably yelling at you, right? Like there's just not that sort of relaxed feel, at least not for me. And so I love it, but I also do really have to be careful. Like I carry a lot of water with me. I'm always trying to get the dogs to stay hydrated, always trying to get them to drink, always trying to keep them cool. And then, we've had times, Whitney and I had a time last year, maybe it was last year, 2 years ago, where the morning was slow, so we did an afternoon hunt. Well, the afternoon was so hot that we didn't bring the dogs. Yeah, it was not nearly as fun, not nearly as enjoyable. But it's not worth, it was like 90-some degrees. Like I'm not going to sit with my dog cooking in the sun and then ask him to go run, because here's the thing too, is like, okay, so that what you think is that simple mark, the dog gets out there and misses it because, again, very poor scenting conditions, small bird, doesn't give off a lot of scent, misses it. Now all of a sudden it's hunt. Well, they finally pick it up. Well, that simple mark isn't a simple mark anymore, because now the dog comes back and it's really hot. And now you got to cool that dog down. And there's something about doves that those feathers just like, half the time it looks like, dog's not hard mouth, delivers that bird perfectly. You take like those feathers, it's like a pillowcase, like puffs up in their mouth, right? And then they're trying to lick to get those feathers off their tongue. So I think sometimes it's overlooked, maybe taken for granted a little bit, how dove season might just look like that preseason, like it's easy, I don't think so, man. Like I think there's a lot of things to consider, when you're going into that dove season. But again, I do believe it is about some of the best and most fun live training situations, especially head into the season, that you can find. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So if you're heading out to dove season, keep that stuff in mind, but enjoy it. It's quickly turned into one of my favorite seasons. I just absolutely love it. I think it's great. All right, now let's transition here a little bit. So I have now worked over the last probably month. I've worked with a lot of people, specifically in more of that advanced level training. So whether that's people that have come out and needed help, people that I've had dogs in for kind of like a tune-up, people that have their dogs in with me with the advanced program. And as we're going through this thing, so, I believe, especially when I know the dog and I know what the dog's capable of, now my focus turns to the owner, the handler here, because I know what the dog's capable of. What I don't know is what you are capable of. right? So I've had numerous situations here over the last month where I think there's been a little frustration. I think there's been frustration on, first off, very positive. Everybody that I've worked with, they've been great people. I mean, passionate, really pour into their dog, really love working with the dog, have very high goals, try to be students of the craft. I think all that stuff is great. Really, really, really good. And I've enjoyed my time with, honestly, every one of them. Like, I can't think of anyone that jumps out at me. It's like, gosh, that was hard to get through. And I love teaching, so that all, works together. But I think there's some things that I'm noticing that I can share with you guys, and hopefully that this helps as you're going through some of this work with your own dog. So understanding your dog, I think, becomes vitally important, especially when you get towards that more advanced level of work, of handling. And the reason is because when you need to read your dog, you need to be able to understand what it is your dog's telling you. And for me, I think, and I have a theory on this. I think the reason it's hard for people to read their dogs in those moments is because they're trying to think of everything else, right? So they're trying to think of when to blow the whistle, how to blow the whistle. When the dog does turn and look for a cast, okay, where do I have to be? How do my hands have to be? What am I trying to do? How am I trying to do it? I just think there's a lot, and maybe it doesn't sound like a lot when we say it out loud there, but I'm just thinking, like, most of these people, it is their first, maybe second dog. And there's a lot there, So one client in particular was, I think, frustrated because when she would walk into the situation, so like for me, I can take the dog, boom, 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 looks like an all-star. Like, I'm really, really, I think this dog is really nice. But then when she would walk in, that dog would be very different. And the biggest thing, the common denominator, was obviously the handler, right? The dog didn't change, the handler did. And you got a very different response. And I think why it's important to not only notice that is because, not only notice that, but then just kind of absorb it, is because I am not saying that, like, what you're doing is bad. I'm just saying that what I'm doing is the timing is correct, the communication is correct, but I do this with how many dogs every day of every year? Naturally, this is second nature to me. So for someone with their first dog learning how to do this, you have to give yourself some leniency, but also you have to understand that when your dog's struggling with something, don't get frustrated and upset with the dog, because more times than not, it's something that you are doing, right? So a couple examples, right? So just trying to think of a couple of these that went on over the last couple of weeks. Okay, so one of them in particular that I really liked, that was really, really important, is so blowing off the whistle was something that this one dog in particular was struggling with their owner. And so what happened is, tweet, and the dog would keep going, right? Tweet, the dog would keep going. Tweet, the dog would finally stop. And what would the owner do? No, 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 no. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, we finally got the dog to do what it was you were asking, and now you're scolding the dog for it. Think about from a communication standpoint, the three things that I'm going to talk about right now: communication, timing, and who they are as a dog. Okay, so communication. Think about the communication in that moment. The dog blows it off, the dog blows it off, the dog finally does it and then gets scolded for it. The dog is going to get confused. So the correct way of doing this, and this dog got infinitely better with the handler when they started doing this, but it's tweet, the dog doesn't comply, there has to be a correction. Now that correction could be on the collar. That correction could be, no, 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 no. That correction could be you running out there. That correction could be something, but you have to correct. You can't just whistle, 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 whistle. Right? Correct for the mistake. Let the dog know immediately that that's what was wrong. Call the dog. To me, I go tweet. The dog didn't do it. Go, no, 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 no. Come here. All the way back. We're going to do this again. Don't let them get away with that. that's how you're asking this whole thing to snowball. Another one, from a communication standpoint, is sometimes I think that the cast. So I have always said, quick on the whistle, slow on the cast. Okay, quick on the whistle meaning don't let them, when you see them start getting offline, don't let them take 5, 6, 7 strides before you stop them. Like, stop them in that first stride or two. Keep everything tight. But then don't be casting as the dog is still slowing down and stopping, right? Because the dog hasn't stopped its brain yet. Let that dog turn, commit to you, and say, okay, boss, where are we going? Before you give the cast. But I think the slow on the cast sometimes is taken a little too literally, because I'm watching people stand there for 10, 15 seconds before they cast. Well, there are situations, yes, that I would do that if I'm reading the dog saying, you need to slow this down and commit to me. But oftentimes, if that dog turns and commits and is like, okay, where do you want me to go? And you stand there for another 15, 20 seconds doing nothing, like, naturally, most of these dogs are going to start going, what am I supposed to be doing here? And that's where you start getting a dog that maybe guesses, that maybe autocasts, that maybe does these things that you're like, oh, what's the dog doing? Just slow down a little bit. Right? Like, the communication factor. Okay, so where I was going with this, the example, okay? So, tweet, the dog turns, looks, and then the dog jumps like, hey, I'm going to take this cast, right? And then, but corrects it, but is still leaning. Okay, so in this example, the dog wanted to go right back, and the owner wanted to go left over. Like, I can tell you right now, that dog's not going left over. Right? So do something to communicate with that dog. I mean, in this case, is a no, sit. Okay, make him sit down, make him go, okay, what do you want me to do? If you really think it's going to be a fight, call him all the way back in. Hey, you're not in charge here. You're not running the show. I am. Come all the way back. Communication is so important. You have to communicate the right way. Timing, my next thing. Timing is so critically important. For example, I think on average when I watch people work their dog, I think they're blowing the whistle 3+ seconds late a lot of times. And you think about, okay, the dog should be corrected now. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Tweet, your dog can cover a lot of ground in those 3 seconds. And let's just say you're running at 12 o'clock and the dog starts, veering to 2 o'clock. The longer you let them go towards 2 o'clock, one, now the more extreme of an angle or more handles you have to get them back online. But then two, every stride that dog is like, I'm doing this right, I'm doing this right, I'm doing this right. Mom or dad's letting me go, I'm doing this right. So every stride you let them take, they're getting convinced that they're doing it right. So now all of a sudden then you have to pull them off and say, no, you're not doing it right. The timing of it, if you see that shoulder dip and go 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So if you can imagine that, dip that shoulder, 2 o'clock. Tweet right now. Give them that straight back cast. Keep them online. A straight back cast for 99% of these dogs is going to be way easier than a hard angle left cast. Timing is so important. Timing, I think, is one of those things that people say, yeah, how do I get better at this? Communication too. It is just simply, you just got to be out there and do it. Like I wish I could write a book just about this. But it seems like as soon as I think I've got it, there's a dog that throws me another curveball that I almost have to relearn a bit, like re-understand. Okay, how are you communicating? I've got 6 dogs in the trailer right now. Well, not literally right now, for my advanced train program. All 6 of those dogs are incredibly different. I mean, I've got everything from a mega fire breather that does not care about getting petted. She does not care about me. She's like, Josh, you're a means to an end. Let's do this, right? I'm there, and she wants me to be there because that means she gets to do what she wants to do. And then I've got the complete other end of the spectrum where I've got a dog that, she's just a lover. She's a softie. She would just as rather sit at the trailer on a lawn chair and sit in my lap and cuddle with me than she would work. Now she's doing the work really well, but if you went from working to doing that, she's like, yep, let's go. Very, very different personality. I have to communicate with those dogs incredibly differently, I should say. But the one that is kind of popped up to me is this last one. Who they are. This is important. I've found now that a few times over the last probably month, I've had conversations with people about this. And I think what happens is, especially that first dog, right? When you get that first dog, you don't know what you don't know. You get that dog, and that dog's going to teach you a lot. Like, yeah, you're teaching the dog, but the dog's teaching you a lot. Can we all just appreciate that for a second? Like, I hear all the time, oh, my last dog, oh, my first dog, oh, my, it's frustrating, right? It whines, it's anxious, it whatever. Well, okay, but like, oftentimes these conversations are being had when they're getting dog number 2 for me, and then that's usually when I'm like, well, wait a second. You wouldn't be here today talking to me if dog 1 wasn't here. Dog 1 hadn't taught you all these things, right? Like, dog 1 should be celebrated. That dog showed us what it is that we do and don't like, got us into this training in general, right? Like, we wouldn't have a passion for this if it wasn't for dog 1. Like, dog 1 is great. Different qualities, for sure. Different dog, 100%. But, I mean, let's not push aside dog 1. We should appreciate that. So then, going back to my original thought here, gosh, I'm having a lot of squirrel moments today. I feel like, so I apologies. But going back to who they are, I feel like, especially with these really talented dogs, they get people into it. They get people excited that they, hey, I'm loving this training. I want to keep going. I want to take it to the next level. I want to do this stuff. There's sometimes I'm seeing people kind of burn out a little bit. Like, the dog kind of hits a ceiling. The dog can't break through, right? And there was a client of ours right now that's like, it's comparing Eric, who's been on the last couple of shows. He has a little female named Phoenix who is really, really nice. Like, she's 11 months old. I think is what she is. Little powerhouse, mega off switch. Like, this little girl sits on a place board at Game Fair with all the chaos and dogs pulling owners all over the place. Kids coming up, pulling on her ears. She just sits there and chills out. But then it's game time, and like this, she's the real deal. And we have a client that's like, well, that's what I want. That's what I want. Why can't my dog do that? It's like, I'm very proud of Phoenix because we bred her. Or she's a product of one of our breedings. But like, that's what she was bred for. Like, this other dog wasn't bred to be like this. Like, you can't just snap your fingers, wave your wand, and make this happen. That's why I get so passionate about the breed stuff, right? Why did you get a different breed? Well, all my buddies have labs. I wanted something different. Well, what do you want? Well, I want them to do exactly what that lab does. Well, they're not built to do that. So I think where I'm going with this whole thing is that I've seen a number of times, and one is a very good friend of mine. He got his dog to be a family dog. He has 3 young kids. They're traveling all the time. They're camping all the time. This dog was purchased to be a family member. But then during hunting season, he's like, gosh, I don't know. I just wish he had more. I wish he had more of a motor. I wish he had more of this. Well, 1, we're not putting the time into training. Sorry, bud. Love you, but we're not. 2, like, that's not what you got the dog to do, right? I made a comment to a client here just last week about this, right? I was like, did you get her? So, I mean, and this client is kind of pushing her dog into very advanced things, trying to be very technical, and the dog's been struggling with it. And I said, did you get her to be a field trial dog? No. Okay, well, why are you trying to make her one now? If that's not who she is, that's not who she is. You can get your next dog, if you are into that, you can get your next dog and go do that, right? But let's not force her to be something she's not, because that's just causing frustration for both you and her. I wouldn't take the kid on the chess team and be like, hey, dude, you're playing point guard next week. Like, you better get in the gym, start shooting free throws. If they're not built for it, they're not made for it, they're not going to be that. But we also have to be honest with ourselves. Like, what is it that we wanted when we started this journey? Now, some dogs are adaptable, and some dogs can bend, and they can elevate, and that's great. But I mean, sometimes we do, I think, just have to look at ourselves and be like, hey, what is the limitation here? What is the ceiling? The reality is, not every dog was built to be a master hunter. Not every dog was built to be a hunter retriever champion, to run at the Grand, to do these things. It's difficult for a reason. It should be that not every dog should be able to do this. It should be that not every dog is capable of doing this. If it was, then the meaning of it would be so much less. I just think it's unfair, to the dogs when we put that weight on them. So I think it's food for thought. Something to think about. All right, we're going to get into some dog bowl questions, because I haven't really done much of this in a while. So here's one. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough. All right, so what we have here is this is kind of interesting. What is your overall recommendation for dog bowls? How often do you clean them? That's an interesting question. It's one that I often don't think about because we clean ours daily. I hate seeing like that saliva kind of causes that kind of like film and grunginess. I just don't like that. To be honest with you, we go stainless steel. I just don't think that cleanliness is important to me. We clean the dishes every single night so that they're clean the next day and ready to go. And man, I don't think that there's a need to have anything extravagant. The one thing that does help dogs once in a while is those slow feed bowls. If you've ever seen them, if you haven't seen them before, they usually have, it almost looks like a corn maze, lack of a better, I don't know how else would you describe this? Almost like a maze of some sorts, but basically it's, and some of them I guess are just like little points, but not sharp, and it's just made it to where the dog has to really work to get the food. They can't just inhale it. For these dogs, it just eat so fast, and then some of these dogs end up throwing up because they ate too fast. I can see that, for sure, but we just don't need it a whole lot at the kennel, especially with how many dogs come through. You'd think that we would need it more often than what we do. We just don't, and so I guess that would be the for the dog bowl. That's an interesting one. I never would have thought of that even as a topic to talk about. So I thought that was great. All right, number 2. We're gonna do 3 of these. Number 2. What are your rodeo plans? Okay, so first off, I guess I owe you guys an explanation. So I was called out on this by about 6 people at Game Fair, which was that I guess on this show I mentioned that I got hurt, but I really didn't mention, I guess, what happened, and then I haven't talked about it since. Call that ego, if you will. I just hate being hurt. I hate it. I hate feeling weak. I hate not being at full strength. I don't know if maybe it's an insecurity fault of mine. I just don't like it. That's why I avoid talking about it. But I'll tell you what happened. I swore I said this, but I've been called out by numerous people that haven't. So if you're new to the show, I do compete in rodeos. I tie down rope, calf rope, and what I was doing is something called tying from the post. So it's just no horse involved. It's just the calf, and you just practice going down the rope, flanking the calf, tying, and quite frankly, it's probably the thing that I need the most practice at. And so I was doing that, and I was doing it with the smallest calf that I had was really too big. He was probably I bet you he was at least 350. I mean, he was big. But it's all that I had. And I was really trying to have my 2 biggest weeks of rodeos coming up. I think I had 6 runs or 7 runs in 10 days. I've never had that before. I was so excited for it. And I was flanking and tying a calf that we called Smalls. He was small when we first got him, but he grew up. And Zach, who you guys have met through the podcast here, works at the kennel. He has a rodeo background as well, so he loves being around it. And so I literally looked at him. I was feeling really good. Like, I'm telling you, I've never been more excited to go into stretch of rodeos in my life. And I looked at him. I was like, one more. I was like, one more, and we're ready for the weekend. And I think this happened on Thursday. And that one more, I went to flank Smalls, and I slipped, and my right leg kind of like kicked under him, but kind of like extended a little bit. And all 350 pounds of Smalls came down on me, and my knee bent in really hard, and I got crumpled up underneath him. And it sounded like like the best way I can describe it is like, you know how 22, like that's what it sounded like. And it happened, and immediately, especially being grown up in athletics, like you hear about that being like, that's a torn ACL, MCL, whatever, it's torn, whatever it is. That's the noise. And I was like, my first thought was ow. But my second thought was, if Zach didn't hear that, I think I'm okay. And I looked up, and I looked right at Zach, and Zach's eyes looked like oranges, and he was like, oh my. And I was like, oh no. So what ended up happening is I went in, got an MRI, and it's a grade 2 sprain to the MCL. To the MCL and the PPCL, something like that. Somebody's going to call me out and say that's wrong. I can't remember what else it was, but it was just something else as well. Which, from what I'm told, I'm not a doctor, but what I'm told is grade 2 sprains are partial tears. And so I went in, consulted with the doctor, and told him what I have going on, and he's like, man, you should really take a couple weeks off, and then as long as you tape it and brace it, like you can do it. And I have been. And it's frustrating not being able to go at full strength. It's frustrating not having the mobility. That brace is so dang big, and I understand like that's what it's made for, is to make it to where I don't have all that mobility so that I can protect it. But it's been frustrating. I went from catching and having times in 6 rodeos in a row, and then I missed 5 in a row. And I think it has everything to do with my mental game. And so this last one, I went back to having a somewhat successful run. I say somewhat because I caught, so that felt good, but I just didn't get the flank in time, the 25 seconds I needed to. And so I've just been struggling. It's been to be honest with you, it's been a really tough mental stretch for me, because you start questioning so much, like, I've been putting so much into this, like, what's going on? Why can't I get over this? Why can't I just feel better? Why can't, I get it, you need to have, like, your body needs to heal. But this season is so short that I've only got a few weeks left, and so I'm trying to push through that a little bit. Whitney's been a really good, person to hold me accountable and remind me, like, hey, like, you're hurt. Like, you got to give yourself some slack. But it's been a frustrating stretch. But I got back. I got back to a little bit of myself here last week, so I'm hoping this weekend I kind of can come back at full force. But my rodeo plans have changed so much this year. So I really went and I what I wanted to do. So when I went through my little bit of a slump there, I went, look, I'm losing ground. So I already missed 2 weeks of not being able to go because of the injury. And then I basically had 2 more weeks where I didn't catch. And so now, like, I'm a month behind everybody else for points to make it to finals. And so I kind of, reevaluated and said, look, like, I think Hurricane's my superstar, which my young horse, like Willie's my older horse. He's great. He's been good, to me. I wouldn't be in this if it wasn't for him, but I've also outgrown him. Like, at this point, he's holding me back from getting better, where Hurricane is elevating me. And I love that horse. I love both of them, but Hurricane's my superstar. So I'm like, look, I'm going to dedicate to Hurricane after about the first maybe 2 misses that I had in that stretch. And then it was a whole new element. Like, it was just like bringing a young dog into hunting season for the first time. So I went into that arena. Now I've been practicing, and the practice man, he's great. He's literally an all-star. And then we go into the arena, and we're talking speakers, we're talking crowd, we're talking about, I'm sure I was different, right? How does this sound familiar? whether that's the first hunt or going to a hunt test, right? Like, you are not the same. You're like, oh, my dog was all over the place. Like, let's look at you. I'm sure you weren't the same as when you're training, right? Your energy's different. Your anxieties may be a little different. Everything's different, right? They pick up on that, both the dogs and the horses in this case. And so we had a few runs where it's like we just had to figure each other out. And I had to learn what I need to do for him, not for me. It was great. I mean, it's literally what I do every day with the dogs, but I'm telling you, this is just a different animal, so it's a different communication level. It's just how I talked about earlier, because I run so many dogs, like I could do that, the corrections and the timing and the communication second nature. I can't do that with the horse, so it's a lot of learning. And so my plan was I'm just going to pour into Hurricane and really kind of get him ramped up and desensitized and all this stuff so that next year we can hit the ground running. Well, he just got hurt this last week, and he's hurt on his front right leg. They reset his shoes, hoping it was going to be that. It looked like maybe it was. It's not. He's back to being a little lame again. And so I just talked to the vet this morning and said his season may be done, which then it redirects my mindset. Okay, now I'm back, with Willie, my old horse, and one. So my plans are all over the place. Here's my ultimate plan. I just want to have fun. I just want to enjoy this. I want to get a little better each time. I'm competing against guys who've done this since they were 8. Like I don't have this false hope of like I'm going to go in here and go to the NFR next year. Like I'm not looking for that. I'm looking like I love to have competitive hobbies. This is that for me, and I love every second. I love the crowd, love the environment, I just love it. So just having fun more than anything. And then next year, that might change. I may. That's what's cool about this. And that's why it relates so much to the dogs, right? Like every year, your goal with your dog is probably going to change. The number of people that have come in with young dogs that's like, yeah, I just want a good hunting dog. And then after year 1, year 2 comes, like, gosh, like I'm having so much fun. We're training. I didn't think I'd get this into it, but I'm really liking it. And then all of a sudden year 3 comes, like, like I went to a couple hunt tests last year and I really liked him. So now I want to go, get a season title. And then I want to go, and then all of a sudden this person that just thought they wanted to have a dog to go hunting with is now all of a sudden trying to prep for the Grand. Like every year is different. On the flip side, we have like what I have, injury wise, like I have an injury I'm dealing with. Brett, who I think you guys have heard, if you haven't, Brett's a part of my team. He does a lot with the retriever roadmap side of things. But, Brett has a young dog. I'm telling you, like, I really, really liked, that little dog. And she just tore her ACL. Like, so all of his plans are changing, So, I think, what's the one saying? The best plan is to have a plan for when your plan doesn't go to plan. There's anytime you're dealing with animals, like that's just it, right? So, so that's kind of my plan. Can continue to have fun with it, continue to enjoy it, and it's just enjoyable to me. It's that fun stuff. So, okay, so last one. Okay. Oh, there you go. How do you ensure confidence in picking up big honkers? So, I'm a big believer in honkers. Just take time and repetition. Some dogs, of course, pick them up, no problem. Some dogs really struggle with it. Now, think about your young dog. The first time they go out to that honker, it's got to look like a pterodactyl sitting there on the ground. It has to, right? Especially if all they've done is done bumpers and maybe frozen ducks and stuff all season long. Like, this is a horse of a different color right now. Like, this is a different ball game. So to just expect that your dog is going to run, grab that thing is not realistic. And then even if they do, how many times have you seen that young dog run back thinking that it's going to run back like it's a bumper, step on that big wing that flops down right at their front feet, and then all of a sudden they flip over and they're like, oh my gosh, I do something wrong. There's all this overthinking. My favorite way to get dogs a lot of confidence is take those honkers and throw them in the water. Make that dog swim out there, because when it swims out there, naturally, it doesn't have to physically pick it up yet, right? It just grabs it and pushes it. So that's one. Then when it gets to the edge of the water, it doesn't have to worry about this big, like now you have to lift it then, right? But the hope is with every stroke, I got this. So all of a sudden they hit shore and there's a confidence that they wouldn't have had otherwise. They do this over and over and over again. I think these young dogs get infinitely more productive quicker by doing it in the water and by taking that overthinking away from them. So I think for me, I love going to the water. I love giving them those reps in the water. But the quickest way to turn a young dog off of honkers is to send them on a cripple. I mean, don't send them into a UFC fight. I mean, there's very little to no win with that. Could you have a young dog that just like hits them like a middle linebacker and comes back and you're super proud and you're yucking it up with everybody's for sure. But if it doesn't, and if that young dog gets beat up, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, you just put yourself in a major hole. Some dogs don't come out. I had one dog named Kimber that we did. I mean, this is a long. Kimber is actually no longer even with us anymore. I think she passed away a couple years ago. But this dog was a badass. I mean, she was like 90 pounds, Chesapeake. I mean, she was a brute. I think he said that she didn't actually pick up a honker until she was 5. And it was just repetition, right? The dog obviously had the muscle, had the strength to do it, just wouldn't do it. And you're not going to force them to do it, at least not to love it, right? So honkers can be interesting for sure, but water has been my biggest ally and my best friend when I'm going through this with young dogs. So, all right, guys, well, I'm going to wrap this thing up so I can get back to the kennel, keep going on here with our afternoon of training. We've got a lot of water work we have set up, some blind work with this advanced group that I'm excited to get back to and get going. But I hope you guys have a fantastic week. And if you're at Game Fair this coming weekend, make sure you stop and say hi. We're actually going to have free Gun Dog Grind coffee. So if you stop by, you're going to get some free coffee complimentary of us. And I guess I hope you guys have a great, and get out training. Season is right around the corner. So make sure you get up there and get all tuned up. So have a great week, you guys. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Eukanuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.